Hi, everyone. Welcome to Get Well with Dr. Shel. I am Dr. Shalina Lalji, better known as Dr. Shel, and I know as a board certified OBGYN and a functional medicine expert, your health is unique and deeply personal. It is a combination of genetics, lifestyle, and environment. Know this, no matter what your starting point is, you are never powerless over your health. Being on a health journey is a marathon, not a sprint. This podcast is about walking you through many different perspectives on health conditions, symptoms, and solutions that can help you get from fatigued to fabulous. My mission has always been to offer my patients and community the best of mental, physical, and spiritual wellness. You can learn more about me and my wellness center and schedule your telehealth appointment at drshel.com. We can support you no matter where you are in the world. This podcast is a powerful and simple way to carry the wisdom of thought leaders from around the world in your pocket and continue to develop your own healing journey every single day. So let the journey begin. Welcome back, everybody. I've got a special treat for you here today. I have my good friend, Dr. Trevor Cates, who is an author of the USA Today and Amazon best-selling book, Clean Skin from Within. I love the book. And founder of the Spa Doctor natural skincare line. She received her medical degree from the National University of Natural Medicine and was the first woman licensed as a naturopathic doctor in the state of California. She currently lives in Park City, one of my favorite places, Utah, which I love to go to. So I'll be coming shortly, where she helps patients from around the world achieve naturally glowing skin. She's been featured on various television shows, including The Doctors and Extra TV. Dr. Cates has interviewed over 250 experts on the Spa Doctor podcast and hosted her own PBS special, Younger Skin from Within. She believes that the key to healthy skin is inner and outer nourishment with natural and non-toxic ingredients, something we both have in common. I am thrilled to welcome my wonderful friend, Dr. Trevor Cates. Welcome, Trevor. Good to have you here.
Oh, it's so great to see you.
Yeah, good to have you. So, we have a lot to share with our audience, so we can jump right in. You and I share this passion for healthy skin and how beauty just begins from within. And it's so important to have a healthy body, and a skin just is a reflection of what we have going on inside of our body. You actually call skin our magic mirror, which I love. So, why do you call the skin our magic mirror? Can you tell our audience that and just kind of explain your concept about skin?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, skin is our largest organ and it's right on the surface of our body. So it's this great outer reflection of our inner health. And so we can actually use it as a tool, a really great tool. And as doctors, we actually often, we usually look at our patient's skin. It's one of
Yeah.
the first things that we notice, and it's a great reflection of what's going on inside. And
Mhm.
so you can get clues about your lifestyle choices, if you're on the right track, if you're on the wrong track, if there are underlying causes that might be interfering with your skin and causing it to break out and create problems. Or sometimes you just notice it's like this, your skin just isn't as vibrant looking as when you were younger. All
Yeah.
of this are signs that something could be out of balance. And our skin is oftentimes one of the first early warning signs. Like, for example, with like hypothyroidism, one of the early signs of that is dry skin. And of course, it comes with a number of other symptoms
Sure.
like fatigue and constipation and weight gain and hair loss, all those sorts of things. But dry skin oftentimes is one of the first signs. So it's a great tool to use. So I encourage people, instead of looking at skin as just, oh no, I've got this breakout, let me just use this topical to suppress it or just use more makeup.
Yeah.
Let's figure out what's behind it and what is our skin trying to tell us.
Yeah. And so it's great that you call it the magic mirror, because it really is giving us information, and this is vital information about what's really going on in our bodies at a cellular level, at a mitochondrial level almost, to show us that something may be awry. And let's not cover it up with a band-aid, so to speak. Let's get to the root cause of what our body is trying to tell us. Now, there's several different times in our lives, right, that we have traditionally skin issues, right? So let's talk with the younger population. Let's talk with about the teen population. I have a 17-year-old and I have a 20-year-old who just got past all that, hormonal phase, which is great. But when you have teens come in to see you or consult you, and typically you're seeing a lot of acne, right? So what do you tell your teen population? Because we know how most of them eat and we know what kind of habits they have, but where do you start them?
Yeah, it's such a great question, and it is one of those perfect examples of these internal changes that are happening that show up on our skin. And I have two teens and a 20-something-year-old, and so
Yeah,
I definitely have seen
yeah,
them as well. But I can definitely say that a lot of our dietary habits, the things that we eat, play a big role in that. So our gut health, it plays a big role in that. And of course, there are genetic factors. There are different skin types. Some people tend to just have oilier skin. But what causes us to break out can be a lot of times there are hormonal imbalances, these surges in our hormones, and that can happen as a teen, but also later on too. But the more we can do to support our body with the right nutrients and great gut health,
yeah,
that is really what's key, and decreasing inflammation. So that means choosing more anti-inflammatory foods versus more pro-inflammatory foods. So that like pro-inflammatory foods are going to be more like sugar,
yeah,
are foods that increase our blood sugar, because blood sugar imbalances are one of the big reasons why we can have these acne breakouts,
yeah,
because really at any age, but especially in these susceptible times,
yeah,
what can happen is if you're eating a lot of sugar or foods that cause the blood sugar to spike, is
yeah,
that it causes an increase in insulin production, which triggers excess sebum production and androgen activity. And that's one of the things that triggers these acne breakouts.
yeah.
So it is, sugar is one of those big ones. And it's not just sugar itself, but really looking at your food choices and more of a balanced approach to that to help keep the blood sugar balanced.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you pointed that out. And a lot of us and a lot of our listeners probably have kids either in high school or college. And unfortunately, cafeteria food, whether they be in school or colleges, are not exactly what, you and I as functional medicine providers really like to promote. And so it's all about education, right? It's all about really understanding what are pro-inflammatory versus anti-inflammatory foods and how to balance that in your diet, but also perhaps supporting your gut with different probiotics and different enzymes and proteolytic enzymes, as well as perhaps, glutamine powder and things of that nature. Because like you said, and like we know, everything sort of starts in the gut and then kind of comes over to all different parts of our body. So I think that's a really interesting point. Go ahead.
Yeah, the good thing about this, if somebody is listening, they have teenagers, or somebody is um, thinking about this, is that it can be definitely a big motivating factor to actually change the diet. So if they understand and they can see for themselves when they eat certain foods, it causes more acne, or when they eat healthier foods, it improves the skin. It actually can be a huge motivating factor to change to a healthier, whole foods kind of more plant-based diet, those sorts of things. I mean,
Oh,
I saw that with my youngest daughter. She had eczema, and she was so motivated to not eat any gluten because that was her big trigger food. And so skin, because we care so much about the appearance of our
sure,
skin,
sure.
one of those things that it can actually be a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, yeah, it's absolutely true. For my kids, it was dairy. Dairy was really inflammatory for both of them, and so we don't have any dairy in the house. It's all almond milk or coconut milk, etc. And it was me telling them to come off of dairy because I don't really, we know gluten, sugars, dairy, all of that we want to try to avoid, but it was difficult for them until that happened and then the dairy went away and the gluten went away. So you're absolutely right. It can be a blessing in disguise, and it's a teaching opportunity, right? It's a teaching moment. Speaking about hormonal health, we know it's very important for most men and women, for all men and women. We also know that hormones affect every aspect of our body. As a woman or a man, goes into sort of perimenopause, menopause, and then for men into andropause, how are those hormonal changes impacting the skin health during those periods, and what can people do about it?
Yeah, there are, of course, a lot of hormonal changes that we go through as we enter that phase, and a lot of focus is on the sex hormones, but also I don't want to forget to talk about adrenal, like cortisol, and also
Oh,
thyroid hormones and the changes that can occur there. So we always want to look at that too,
yep,
because those levels can start to decline, or having like an autoimmune thyroid disease can come up. So we always want to look at that because, like I mentioned with thyroid, if it's too low, your skin could be dry. If it's too hyperact, you have like
yep,
hyperthyroid, it could tend to your skin to be more oily and more acne prone. And then with cortisol, if cortisol levels are high, then that creates a lot of more skin inflammation, that internal inflammation that shows up on the skin, worsening of skin issues, or appearance of new skin problems that are more inflammatory in nature. But
mm,
then when we look at sex hormones, some of the things that we saw when we had these surges in hormones and puberty can either come back, or maybe never even had problems with acne, but people might start to notice
mm.
that they're breaking out more, and they're like, "Bam, I had so many women saying to me,
Oh,
I'm not a teenager. Why is this happening to me?"
exactly. Yep, yep.
But with the changes that are happening, what we have is, decline in progesterone. And then with that, you could have more androgen in association to that. So that can sometimes cause it. And then, earlier on in perimenopause, so like that, we see the drop in progesterone, and then, we see the drop in estrogen and then testosterone. So all of these can create
Yes,
different issues with the skin. So it's really about supporting our body in balance. And there are so many great nutrients and herbs, and also just having great gut health.
yes,
And knowing that our gut health is in a balanced state, then that is going to help, as well as our detoxification pathways,
right,
all of that with our
right.
metabolizing hormones and the balance of it.
It's,
It's just like a whole symphony of the hormones and the way they relate with one another and are interconnected.
absolutely. No, very, very good point. And I think it's really important for everybody to realize that you really have to kind of get to the core of the cellular health and make sure that at the mitochondrial level and the cellular level that you're decreasing inflammation. And when you have hormonal imbalances, which is why we're big fans of optimizing hormones, whether it's your thyroid hormone or optimizing your circadian rhythm with your cortisol hormones. And, we hear this all the time that whenever I get stressed out, I have this big thing pop up on my face because that's your body just saying, okay, this cortisol rush is just not working for me. I'm in a fight or flight mode. And your body's again telling us through our skin what's going on inside. So hormones are incredibly important. How about toxins? Let's talk about that a little bit because, I always like to start a lot of my patients on a sort of gentle but very effective 14-day detox program where I'm detoxifying, whether it's the foods they're putting in their bodies, cutting out sugars, processed foods, things of that nature. And it's remarkable, Trevor, and you see this as well, that just within 2 weeks, their skin clears up, just by getting rid of all these toxins and getting rid of the inflammatory foods. So let's talk about toxins for a second, because it's not just what we're putting in our mouth, but what we're putting on our bodies and in our surroundings.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do, I love that you're talking about 2 weeks, because I have a 2-week program in my book. And I do feel like it's kind of, I mean, you can get a lot of benefit out of a week-long program, but a
Yeah,
2-week also gives you a good amount of time to press the reset button to get certain things out of your system
yeah,
and kind of reestablish and also see some progress.
yeah.
And your skin is one of the early places you can see that. And when you start to see that change, and that, like, wow, I didn't, I mean, this is why I wrote my book, as my patients were doing actually 2-week weight loss program. And they would say at the end of the 2 weeks, Dr. Cates, I've lost weight. I feel great. But what surprises me is my skin. And I was like, well, of
Right.
course, because it's, this outer reflection. So yes, getting the toxins out. And one of the biggest things is there are two parts to that. First is, and I talk about this a lot in my book, and my book actually go through 4 different areas, and that is clean plate, clean slate, clean body, and clean mind. So it's
Right.
clearing out the toxins and all of these areas, a clean plate, clearing out those trigger foods and encouraging, using replacing with healthier foods. And then the second is, clean slate. What we're putting on our bodies, taking out the toxins from that and putting in, our natural ingredients. And then clean body is what else do we have going on in our environment, and how can we support our body's detoxification pathways? And then
Right.
clean mind, because we've got toxins and, the stress and, and those thoughts that can be really toxic for us. We got to clean those out too. So it's really all of that. But I think what I want to make sure that I'm sharing today, because of my experience creating the Spa Doctor skincare line, is I've learned so much about the personal care product industry and how many toxins are in these products. And I think when we are putting something in our mouth, we think about, oh, is this clean? Is this a good idea? Like, did I just pick it up off the floor and put it in my mouth? No, you're not going to do that, right? Not
Right.
typically. um,
5 second rule.
right, 5 seconds. But a lot of times we just put things on our skin without thinking about it. Not only do we drop it on the floor and put it on our skin, but it may
Right.
have been in our cabinets for like 5 years and never even looked to see if it has an expiration date, or to look what's in it. What are the ingredients in there? And unfortunately, it's actually not, the skincare personal care product industry is not a very well regulated industry in the United States. In Europe, they've banned over 1,000 ingredients in personal care products, but in the United States, the FDA has only banned about 11 ingredients. And
Wow.
so
What a difference.
yeah, it's a huge difference. And so
Yeah.
it really is up to us to do a little bit of an investigative work, looking at labels. So one of the biggest ingredient concerns or group of ingredients is these endocrine disrupting chemicals, which you know a lot about. So these EDCs, endocrine disrupting chemicals, are hormone disrupting chemicals. And we were just talking about the importance of hormones and the function and the changes that we go through as we age. And now we're starting to use more and more products. As we age, we're typically using more and more personal care products, but many of these actually contain these endocrine disrupting chemicals. So what will happen is these chemicals will bind to hormone receptors in the body, and they can mimic hormones. They can alter the way that our hormones function. And so endocrine disrupting chemicals have been linked to fertility issues, certain types of cancer like breast cancer, prostate cancer, also been connected to thyroid disease, problems going through menopause, perimenopausal symptoms. All of that can be really anything having to do with
Right.
hormones could be impacted by this group of chemicals. And we are exposed to them in like pesticides in foods and lead or arsenic in water. They're in a lot of places, but they're also in a lot of personal care products. So for example, fragrance is used in a lot of personal care products and cleaning products, right? So fragrance is one that's listed as a single ingredient, but it's actually a lot of ingredients. And oftentimes in fragrance, there's diethyl phthalate, which is an endocrine disrupting chemical, or maybe sometimes even other ones. But in the
Right.
example of diethyl phthalate, it's a plasticizing agent, but it's used in fragrance to help the scent last longer. But
Mhm.
it has these endocrine disrupting effects, and studies have shown that it does show up in human samples, in human tissue. So we know that it does actually get absorbed through the skin. And a lot of people have also heard about parabens, methyl paraben, propyl paraben, all of these different types of parabens that
Mhm.
have these estrogen mimicking effects. So
Mhm.
these are just a couple of examples. There are so many more. But the good news is that there are a lot of natural ingredients that people can use instead. So like organic essential oils, or going fragrance free, or there are a lot of different options for people.
Right, right. So people don't have to smell bad. Is that what you're saying? And in all seriousness, I think that that's the shift that I made for myself personally a couple of years ago. And it just makes you feel um, fresh and clean, and you're not putting things on your body because if you think about it, just like you explained a little bit earlier, the skin is the largest organ we have. And so the absorption is something we should always be keeping in mind. Anything that we put on our skin, anything that touches our skin, can get completely absorbed. And we know this because, in my field of prescribing bioidentical hormones, we do a lot of topical bioidentical hormones, and we do a lot of that in a cream form. Why? Because it is absorbed so well. So when we're trying to give good things, we want that absorption. But similarly, if there are all these parabens and other toxic products, we don't want that absorbed. And we know that the skin absorbs so very well. So I'm really glad that you pointed that out. And then again, of course, in our environment, cleaning products, as well as there are certain things that I always say, you can't control everything in your environment, although we'd like to, but we just simply cannot. But what we can control, we really should, right? And so I think that's kind of what it's all about, to really understand why toxic products play such a big role in skin health. Now, in your book, you also mention 5 skin types. I'd love for you to kind of review for our audience what those are and what makes them different.
Yeah, so when I was writing my book, I realized I wanted to make it easier for people because I knew everybody couldn't come in to see me to help them figure out what their root causes are.
Oh,
And so I had identified that there are 6 root causes behind skin issues, but not everybody has all 6. Things like what we've been talking about, like hormonal imbalances,
yeah.
microbiome, gut issues, as well as nutritional deficiencies, blood sugar problems, inflammation, oxidative damage. These are the typical root causes.
Right.
But so I created these skin types to help people identify which are their root causes because I was seeing these patterns, 5 different skin types. And so each one has a group of some of the root causes associated with them. And I wanted to give them all human names because of course, see my patients as people, right? We're not just like dry skin issue or eczema or something like that.
Right.
So
Right.
they're Amber, Olivia, Sage, Emmett, and Heath are the skin types. And so when people want to find out what their skin type is, I created an online quiz and people can find it at theskinquiz.com. It's a free online quiz to find out what your skin personality type is. And when you find that out, you're able to more specifically hone in on your root causes. And in my book, the 2-week program that I lead people through, I give people ways to customize and individualize the 2-week program once they know their skin type. So then that it helps them with specific dietary changes, with certain supplements, even topicals that they can use on their skin to help address the root causes.
Great, great. So it really is very, very customized. And I tell you, I mean, when I'm looking at this book, it seems so practical. That's what I loved about it is, you divided it up into so many wonderful tips. And I especially liked the 2-week program where you have it very well outlined. And I know you kind of touched upon it a little bit earlier, but do you mind expanding on the 2-week program? Because I think it's so doable and you make it super easy with all these great recipes that I love back here. I mean, great pictures and great recipes. So talk to us about the 2-week program, because I think a lot of people can take that away and really put that into practice quite easily.
Yeah, so I walk people through these 4 different sections of
Huh?
the clean plate, clean slate, clean body, and clean mind.
Mhm.
And so with the clean plate section, really with each one, what we're doing is we're trying to help address people's root causes by using things like food as medicine, right? So looking at what are your trigger foods? Let's eliminate the 10 things that I find are the most common triggers for people with skin issues. So
Right.
eliminating those 10, but it's not just about taking things out, it's about putting really great foods in. It's a lot easier to follow a program if you focus on what you're putting in rather than taking out.
Right.
So there's a big focus on that. And that's also why I wanted to include recipes, especially for people if this is new to them to be eating foods without gluten, without dairy, some of the things that we talked about,
Yeah.
giving them ideas and realizing you could still enjoy food. I'm
Yeah,
a big
exactly.
foodie. In
It's
fact,
so delicious.
yeah, two of my kids have now like decided that's like a big passion of theirs. My son is studying to become a chef, and my daughter is like
Nice.
a gluten-free baker. So we
Yeah.
we we love food in our house.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
it's not like you're being deprived. You just have to find the healthy substitution, and
Right.
then learning things like, cooking with herbs and spices and things to give it a flavor.
Yeah.
And then, the clean slate section, we talked a little about taking those toxins out of your skincare products, what to use instead. And I give a list of some of the worst ingredients to look for, and then healthier alternatives. And then with the clean body section, we were talking about detoxification earlier, and this is a key part of this, is that there's really two important parts to detoxification. And that is, one, you've got to take the toxins out. You've got to reduce your overall exposure. Because
Yeah.
if you just dive into doing a liver cleanse and you're still getting exposed to things in your water and your food and your personal care
Right.
products, your body's going to be working on trying to get those out and never get to what's being stored up in your body.
True.
And so first you got to reduce the total load and reduce your exposures. And then you also want to improve your body's detoxification pathways. People
Right.
oftentimes think a lot about the liver, but there's also the kidneys, the lymphatic system, and even the skin. The skin is a big detoxification organ. When we perspire through the skin, we release a lot of toxins that way too. So, that I think that's an important part too. As you go, like as I lead people through the 2-week program, I give people specific ways to do a lot of these things. And then the clean mind is really about stress management. And like with any of these, you don't want to say, okay, well, on the weekends I'm going to do my stress management, or I'm
Mhm.
going to go to the spa this day of the month, and then that's it. Like, you've got to figure out a
Lifestyle.
way.
It's a daily lifestyle. You're
Yeah,
absolutely
it's
right.
daily
Yeah.
lifestyle choices, as that's where people notice the biggest change. And so when you have a practice of doing it every day for 2 weeks, it's a great way to pick out the ones like, oh, I really like that stress management technique. That works really well for me. I
Mhm.
can do that every day. It takes 5 minutes, or even just, okay,
Right.
come and close my eyes and take a few deep breaths. Like,
Yeah.
you got
Yeah.
time to do that.
Absolutely right. You're so right because to me, I think a lot of people are really starting to believe in the power of mindfulness and just quieting the mind. In fact, I talk about it in we're doing this navigating life series, and I have one that I did on self-care. And I think it's really important, just like you said, pick the ones that work for you. So whether it be journaling, or it's 5 minutes of deep breathing, or it's some yoga stretches, or it's just reading something that appeals to you, or listening to some very quieting music, whatever that may be. But I think we live in such a busy world. And unfortunately, with the pandemic, we live in a very stressful world. And so, if we can just take that time to quiet the mind and quiet the soul and just get connected with ourselves, so much can happen in the way of detoxifying as well. It just happens automatically because we've got to detoxify the mind as well. The mind is full of clutter. It's a monkey mind. It goes everywhere. So I think I'm so glad that you have that as part of your 2-week program, because honestly, I truly believe you can't get healthy without having that component along with the physical and emotional component.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times people think, "Oh, I'm okay. I don't, I'm not really that stressed." But
Yeah.
it's funny, I was just actually just at a dentist appointment. I was talking to the dentist, and he was talking about um, people grinding their teeth, and
Yes.
that over the last year, he's seen so many more people grinding their teeth while they're sleeping or clenching, like they have their mask on, and they're just like, and,
Mm, right?
and people don't even realize that
No.
doing this. But what's we're watching the news and everything that's happening around us, we
Right.
can't help but be impacted by it. And it impacts our bodies. So it's so crucial to take some time for
Absolutely.
that.
And for those who are listening, one of the ways to maybe look at how your adrenal gland is doing, which is your stress gland, we can certainly just do a salivary cortisol testing, which checks your cortisol 4 times during the day, and you can see what your circadian rhythm looks like to be able to then support whether you are, in overdrive or if you're in adrenal fatigue. And we treat it differently, of course, but I find that stress can trigger all kinds of problems in the skin. Stress. So we talked about stress, we talked about diet. You mentioned so many things as far as what you should and should not be putting in your diet. What about nutrition and supplementation and herbs? Let's talk about some of the top foods and nutrients that trigger skin problems and then others that are really good for your skin.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we talk about food in general. I mean, we talk about sugar being one of the big trigger foods. We talked about some of the other big triggers. But when we talk about foods and like nutrients in foods, some
Mhm.
of the most important nutrients in food are essential fatty acids is a really important one. And I know people talk a lot about hydration when it comes to skin, but usually people are thinking about water. But we also want these good fats that hydrate our skin from the inside out, and even on a cellular level, like hydrating the cells, and also choosing the types of fats that are more anti-inflammatory than being more pro-inflammatory. So getting rid of the trans fats and the hydrogenated oils and those sorts of things, but instead using more plant-based oils, avocado oil, olive oil, those types of oils
Mhm.
instead. And getting these essential fatty acids, which is essential fatty acid deficiency is one of these things that commonly will show up on the skin.
Mhm.
So, dryness of the skin, even these little bumps on the backs of the arms, keratosis pilaris, that can be from essential fatty acid deficiency. It can
Mhm.
also be from other mineral deficiencies,
Mhm.
like zinc. Is another common one. Zinc
Okay.
deficiency is common with skin issues. We really need zinc to help heal the skin and repair the skin. So
Right.
if our zinc levels aren't high enough, and of course we need zinc for the immune system too, and a lot of people are, and certain times of the year, especially feeling depleted in zinc. So that's a really important one to get up. Another nutrient that's really important for wound repair and skin repair is vitamin C. And we
Yeah.
know that vitamin C helps with our collagen. And collagen gives our skin that nice texture and firmness, and it does start to decline with age and oxidative damage, breaks it down. Blood sugar imbalances can break it down. So we want to make sure that we're doing things that are, we're getting foods rich in vitamin C. And in addition to getting it in food, you can also take supplements to help. Other nutrients, I mean, there's so many. I mean, really, it's like, what's important for the skin is important for so many organs throughout the body, but vitamin D, B vitamins, those are also very important for helping with the
Absolutely.
skin.
I'm glad you mentioned the zinc. And it's one of those things where we just did a podcast on Hashimoto's, and so it's almost like zinc is that one-stop fits all kind of thing because in Hashimoto's and thyroid conditions, zinc is very important. Right now with the pandemic, we know zinc is very important for the immune system. We're talking about zinc for the skin. We know zinc is very important for hair regrowth. When I was kind of putting together it's called Beauty by Douglas Laboratories skincare line. It's more of a nutritional line, if you will, for the skin, and it's always been very important when I was formulating these products to make sure I had omega and zinc. And if I'm looking at the hair, then you've got your keratin and your biotin, and it's really interesting how the skin responds so well to things that you put into your body. And zinc is definitely way up there for me for any of these conditions that we can talk about. So I'm glad that you pointed that out. That's a lot of people don't realize how important zinc is to your body besides for the immune system. So um, that is really a very, very good nutrient that I think all of us should be on. So besides diet and nutrition, what other ways can we address the underlying causes that you mentioned? So, we spoke generally about a lot of different things, but maybe some takeaways of what should people be looking at besides diet and toxins and, hormonal.
You asked me about herbs, and I think herbal medicine is another really great one to help support the body and the skin and really addressing the root causes. So when you look at herbs for skin, you want to think about, okay, so what root cause am I trying to address here? So if you're looking at something like inflammation, for example, then you might want to look at anti-inflammatory herbs, something like, turmeric or curcumin, something along those lines, are going to be more anti-inflammatory. If you're looking at something like hormonal imbalances
Mhm.
as being the root cause, and you want to think, okay, if we're going after maybe, for example, progesterone being low, we can support our body's natural progesterone by taking things like chaste tree berry.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are lots of different ways you can use herbs to help address the root causes. Those are just a couple of examples. And then also, when it comes to skin, I know we've talked a lot about healing the skin from the inside out, and that is so important. But also, what we put on the skin, not only do we want to take the toxins out, but we want to make sure that we're also restoring the skin externally. So, our skin has this pH in it, it's a mildly acidic
Mhm.
pH.
Mhm.
And so it's mildly acidic because our skin works, it has one of its biggest functions is it works as a barrier to the outside world. It's
Okay.
protecting from the outside world. So it has this mild acidity to it. It has this this skin microbiome, these microorganisms that live on the skin that protect the skin. So
Cool.
what we put on the skin could either nourish it and support it, or it could break it down and create imbalances. So for example, cleansers, people oftentimes make a mistake with cleansers that are stripping the skin. They
Mhm.
oftentimes have a high pH, which
Mhm.
doesn't support the mild acidity of the skin. So then people then are trying to use a toner to then restore the skin. And then they're,
Wow.
like, but if you start with a really great cleanser that doesn't strip the skin, but instead supports the skin with still containing some mild acidity. And, that's what we do with the Spa Doctor skincare products. And then other products, instead of using these, more synthetic, toxin ridden chemical products, using more natural ingredients that actually supports the skin microbiome. These things are really, really important to get to see results in the skin. And this is something that, as a, I've been a naturopathic physician for 21 years now. I can't believe it's been this
You
long.
do not look like you have, girl.
And thank you. But in the beginning of my practice, I really just focused from the inside out. And that's all I did. I didn't even recommend topical treatments for my patients. And then I started doing research on the skin microbiome and understanding what these different products are put on the skin and how it can actually help that. That was when I really started to see my patients get more
Yeah.
improvement with their skin. So
Yeah.
it's that inside and outside approach.
And
We want to
outside.
come about
Yeah.
it from
Oh,
both angles.
absolutely. And it's the skin gut connection. So the gut has the microbiome, but so does the skin. And you've got to support both. So I'm really glad you pointed that out. And another thing that I have to compliment you on is some of the masks and other things that you've kind of pointed out in the book. And you've given these great recipes of how to DIY, do it yourself at home, creating these products for yourself, which I think is just lovely. And I definitely would encourage the audience to get a copy of your book and try some of those recipes because I think they look amazing. The other last question that I have, because I think a lot of people don't know this. So, we talked about skincare, right? We talked about cleansers and toners and moisturizers and all that. Makeup, it's
Mhm.
going right on your skin. Talk a little bit about makeup and what should the audience know about makeup that you're buying from the drugstores or even, fancy stores, Saks and Nordstrom's and whatever. what do they need to know about what the ingredients are, and how do they look for the most natural makeup without the toxic ingredients?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing I want to say about makeup is that ideally we get to the place where makeup is just something that enhances rather than covers up.
Right.
Because when our skin is really well balanced and we're nourishing it from the inside and out, and we've addressed the root causes, really we can feel comfortable going makeup free because we have nothing to hide. But I still know, I mean, I know we love to, as women, we like to, enhance what we have, right? So having some makeup and but it is a lot of the things that I talked about before with toxins and skincare products, it's going to be similar in makeup. A lot of similar types of endocrine disrupting chemicals and that sort of thing, but also just the functionality of our skin. When we think about the skin microbiome, when we put something on like a foundation that has, there's certain ingredients that are oftentimes found in face products of like foundation that kind of trap in moisture to make it look like our skin is dewy, or it makes our skin look more matte to take out the shine. But what's happening is we're actually interfering with our skin microbiome. Ingredients like dimethicone, for example, is one of those ingredients that kind of traps in moisture. But there are concerns about, especially if you're you go outside, it's warm and you warm up, or you're exercising, the heat can't escape your skin because you've got this layer on top of it. So it creates this disruption within your skin. And then you're going to see, be more likely to break out. And also, what we know about the pH of the skin is if we can maintain that mild acidity, it does help with graceful aging. So
Mhm.
when we maintain that, the healthy skin microbiome and the healthy pH, it naturally helps with, fine lines and wrinkles and collagen loss.
Right. Absolutely. No, that's those are some really good points. And it's okay to want to enhance your appearance, but really just be conscientious about what you're putting on your skin. And if you're going to put something on that may not be all natural, do it for a short period of time and let's get it off so we don't clog the pores and allow our skin to breathe as much as it possibly can. Well, listen, this was wonderful. It was a great overview on why skin is so important and what people can do to have the best, most glowing skin possible. I also love your free gift for our audience. We have a great gift, the best and worst foods for skin. So we'll post this on my website so everybody can get a copy of your free gift. So thank you for that. And then along with the free download, we have a discount code, save 20, especially for our listeners. You can use this to save 20%. Thank you, Trevor, for doing that for our audience off of any purchase in the Spa Doctor store. We'll have the link with the podcast. So be sure to check out Dr. Trevor's Daily Essentials Convenience Plan, where you can get up to 30% off your initial order if you combine the discount code savings and the automatic 10% off when you choose to subscribe and save. It was great to have you here today, Trevor. Really nice to see you. And thank you for all the wonderful information that you shared with our audience today.
Thank you for having me. It's so great to be with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we will catch you next time, everybody. Thank you for joining us and join us for our next session. Bye bye. Thank you so much for making time for today's podcast with Get Well with Dr. Shel. I know that this conversation and education can help you to create your best life possible on every level. So definitely tune in to hear the newest expert and learn the latest protocols to support your best health journey. You can learn more about me and my wellness center at drshel.com, drshel.com, and I hope that you will make time to come visit us in the Houston area to take a deep dive on self-care. My team and I are completely devoted to helping you live a better life from this moment forward. The best days of your life are ahead of you, I promise. This podcast is a powerful and simple way to carry the wisdom of thought leaders from around the world in your pocket and continue to develop your own healing journey every single day. So let's the journey begin.